A while back, I was talking with another guitar player on the phone, and I don't know what we were talking about, probably talking about gear. And I asked him if he had ever seen any of Glenn Fricker's videos. He's got a YouTube channel, I think it's called Spectre Sound Studios. And when I mentioned Glenn, this other guitar player just kind of went off. He said, "Oh my God, are you talking about that loudmouth, blowhard boomer that thinks he knows everything there is to know about pickups and tubes and tonewood?" And he kind of went off for a little while. I'm thinking,
Wow!
I've been thinking about that conversation ever since. And I've decided that I need to do this video and I need to expose the truth about Glenn Fricker.
It's not rocket science.
You might be wondering why I'm qualified to talk about Glenn's videos at all. Well,
It's not rocket science.
let me tell you a little bit about myself. I've been a professional guitar player for decades. I've played thousands of shows. I've played small 175 seat capacity rooms. I've played open air festival stages to 10,000 people or more, and I've played everything in between. I've owned amplifiers or do own amplifiers from Fender, from Vox, from Marshall, from Randall, from Hughes and Kettner, from Carvin. There's been circumstances where I couldn't use my own amp and I had to use either borrowed or rented backline, and I've used PV 5150s, I've used Mesa dual rectifiers, triple rectifiers, I've used Black Star amps, I've used a ton of gear. I own vintage guitars with vintage humbucker pickups in them. I own modern guitars with active EMGs. I've got guitars with Seymour Duncan pickups. I've got guitars with DiMarzio pickups. I've got guitars with junky Chinese pickups. Over the years, I've had to change tubes in all these tube amps that I've owned, and I have replaced preamp tubes and power tubes, and I've used everything from crappy little no brand tubes that I picked up at a local electronics store to some of the best known names in vacuum tubes out there. I've been modding guitars for years, replacing capacitors and potentiometers and pickups. I've been involved in amp mods, and I guess what I'm trying to say is I've got decades of real world hands-on experience. And I think that entitles me to have an opinion about these things that Glenn is saying.
Congratulations.
So let me ask you a favor. I want you to watch this video to the end. It's not that long. Whether you're pro Glenn Fricker, anti-Glenn Fricker, fluid Glenn Fricker, I don't care. I just really want you to watch this all the way to the end so you can hear my whole argument. And then if you want to flame me in the comments, go ahead. But please just watch this all the way through and pay attention to everything that I actually say. So let's start with tone is in the hands.
The sound is in the hands. It's just a f***ing cop-out.
I'm sure there are thousands of guitar players out there that have stories similar to this one. Quite a few years ago, over a decade ago, I went and saw the Michael Schenker Group at a small venue in DeKalb, Illinois. And when I say it was a small venue, I mean it was small. I was right next to the stage. The wedge monitor was right in front of me. The pedals that Michael was using, I could reach down and I could have unplugged his guitar if I wanted to. That's how close I was to the stage. And the opening band had finished, the guitar tech came out, tuned up. Michael had a tuner, a wah pedal, a delay pedal, and there might have been one other, but there was no distortion pedal. And I could see the entire chain. There was a chord going from Michael's signature black and white Flying V to the tuner, and then patch chords, and you could see the cable running all the way back to his Marshall. The guitar tech tunes up, and then he turns the amp on, right? And he's playing little single note phrases, and he's doing a couple of chords, whatever. And I'm thinking to myself, man, Schenker's going to come out and he's going to shoot a brick because this tech is not getting his tone. It just sounded anemic and it sounded wimpy. And the guitar tech, he puts the guitar down. They didn't change guitars, so I know that wasn't a factor in the sound. There's no cables running off where I couldn't see them to some magical mystery pedal or circuit or whatever. I know what the signal chain was. And so anyway, he puts the guitar down. A few minutes later, Michael comes out, he picks it up, they launch into a song called Into the Arena. And man, I mean, there's the Michael Schenker sound. It was aggressive, ferocious, and my mind was blown. I walked out of there convinced the tone is in the hands. And we're going to come back to this in just a minute. Before we finish up with that, let's talk about what Glenn's got to say about pickups and tubes and tone woods and all that sort of stuff.
Tubes, tone wood, pickups, it's all complete nonsense.
Remember, I've got lots of experience with lots of different types of pickups.
None of that matters at all.
Here's the thing. Glenn's not wrong. He never said that pickups don't matter. What he said was they don't matter that much when it comes to high gain modern metal tones.
When you're playing high gain metal stuff,
Wait, what?
when you're playing high gain metal stuff, none of that matters at all. I mean, like, you're hearing a slight difference, but it's not worth the expense. Not in my opinion.
Wait, what? I thought you were going to expose the truth about Glenn Fricker and his wild claims. Yeah, I am. And that's the truth when it comes to pickups. He's absolutely right. What he's talking about is high gain modern metal, and he's not saying that they don't make a difference in tone. He's saying it doesn't make that big of a difference. And if you need a big change in your tone, start with speakers.
Are we hearing a slight difference? Yes. Slight difference, absolutely. Massive difference? No. The massive difference is when we change speaker. I don't say pickups all sound the same. What I say is they don't make the big shifts in tone that we've been led to believe by the advertisers, by the marketing. You might not get the perceived tonal shift that you've been expecting due to the massive amounts of disinformation out there when it comes to high gain guitar tone. You might get a little bit of a shift, but you're not going to get a gigantic shift. So if you're thinking the pickup's going to be the magic bullet for the tone you're looking for, it's just not going to do it. That being said, on clean tones, yes, you'll get a much bigger shift. Clean tones, yes, you'll get a much bigger shift.
The same thing is true with tubes. Like I said, I've swapped out tubes on a ton of amps over the years. And I've discovered that, yeah, if you've got weak preamp tubes in there and you replace them with good preamp tubes that have got strong output, it'll hit the output stage a little harder and you'll get a little bit more gain, a little bit more distortion. But don't confuse that with tone.
I never said tubes don't matter. I'm just saying varying brands of tubes really don't matter as much as we've been led to believe. Some tubes are a little louder than others. Some will break up a little easier than others. But when we ran the test and eliminated all the variables except for the tubes, we did not get the kind of massive frequency shift that I had been told to expect.
All right. We get it. You're on Glenn's side. But wait a minute. You said tone is in the hands. Well, actually what I said was I walked out of a concert more than a decade ago convinced that tone was in the hands. So over the years, I have clarified and refined my thinking on this whole concept. Now to me, when somebody says the sound is in the hands, I would argue that that's partially correct because the sound is an accumulation of style and technique, which is in the hands, and equipment. So maybe this is where Glenn and I would disagree, is on the terminology, because he uses the phrase the sound is in the hands and says that's total nonsense. I would disagree. Like I said, any guitarist's sound is an accumulation of their style and their technique, and that's in the hands. The equipment is what produces the tone. All right, so if somebody says the tone is in the hands, I will argue no, tone is not in the hands. Tone is in the equipment. Style, technique, all that is in the hands. The hands can affect the tone a little bit. Listen to this. So if I pick way up here, I don't know if that's loud enough. I'm not plugged in. That sounds way different than, right? So your hands can affect the tone, but again, that's just technique. Overall frequency response is determined by the equipment. So keep this in mind. That slight difference that you heard, depending on where I was picking, would be almost imperceptible in a high gain setting. So again, tone is not really in the hands. While you can affect the tone a little bit, it might not be that noticeable, if at all, in a high gain setting, which is what Glenn mostly talks about. Going back to the Schenker concert, there's so many things that I don't know for sure. Did the guitar tech have the guitar turned up all the way, or did he only have it on one or two? Was he playing with a pick, or was he simply strumming notes with his thumb? I don't know. There's so many things that I don't know about that situation that as anecdotal evidence, I have to completely disregard it and go more with my own hands-on experience. Which takes us back to tone is not in the hands. Tone is in the equipment, style, technique, articulation. That's in the hands, which contributes to the sound, which many guitar players confuse with tone. So all I'm saying is this. When you see one of Glenn's videos, listen carefully to what he says. Watch it all the way through.
Dude, did you even try watching the video?
You just need to listen with an open mind and watch the video all the way through. So that's the truth about Glenn Fricker. I think he does a good job with his experiments. I think he's trying to save the viewers money and time and headaches and heartaches. There's another guy you need to go watch. His name's Jim Lill. So Jim's only got about 12 or 14 videos, but they are so good. He's done some excellent experiments trying to find exactly where the sound in an electric guitar comes from, where it comes from in an amplifier or a speaker cabinet. And you really need to go and watch a few of those before you go out and spend a bunch of money on gear. All right, that's my rant for today. Don't flame me too badly in the comments. I will see you guys in the next video, and until then, live well and rock hard.